Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Welcome to Morning Shot. Now, cyber threats are no longer just a big company problem. From phishing scams to ransomware, SMEs in Singapore are increasingly finding themselves in the crosshairs of cyber threats with real financial and reputational costs when systems go down or data is stolen. Yet a recent QBE survey found that fewer than 4 in 10 SMEs here have cyber insurance, even as awareness of digital risks continues to evolve. So what should SME owners be most alert to in 2025? Where does insurance fit alongside other safeguards like staff training and system upgrades? And how can businesses strike the right balance between prevention and protection? To help us unpack the risks and realities of cyber insurance for SMEs, we're joined by Sam Russell-Vick, lead Cyber Underwriter, QBE Asia. Sam, good morning. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. For an SME owner listening to us right now, Sam, what are the top 3 cyber risks they should be most alert to this year?
Well, there's definitely been all the scams and everything at the moment. We're all well aware of that. Also, just moving into, you mentioned it earlier, ransomware. This is really on the rise. And the reason is it's becoming very, very profitable for the cyber criminals as well. And also just your own business and reputation and your business risk as well. You know, what if you can't access your network for a week, 2 weeks, or an extended period of time? You know, what does that mean to you as your company?
All right, let's turn to a survey that was put out by QBE, which found that fewer than 4 in 10 SMEs in Singapore have cyber insurance. What are the main reasons behind the low uptake?
Absolutely. So there is only 4 in 10 at the moment. But also on our survey as well, we found that 60% of people, they felt like they were really uninformed by the cyber risks out there. So there's definitely a lack of awareness and we need to be doing more to do that. But there's also a lot of our clients who are very well versed on what these cyber threats are, but they might not even know that there is something like a cyber insurance policy that can help them with that. And then there's absolutely some misconceptions. Something I hear is, well, why would they attack me? Well, they being the cyber criminals. So there's been a change in strategy from these cyber criminals. They're no longer just, we're looking at this company, we want to target you. They are also now using AI. They're scaling their operations. They're now targeting thousands of companies at once and seeing what sticks. So maybe your company's going to be at the wrong end of that. So this is something that us at QBE, we need to definitely help bridge that awareness gap and help our clients with that.
And they're also very likely to use smaller companies or SMEs as a gateway to infiltrate larger networks as well. Now, you talked about cyber insurance policy cover and their unawareness about what it does entail. What's often not covered that SMEs should be aware of?
There's sometimes a bit of a grey area with the regulatory fines and penalties. You know, in Singapore, we have the PDPA. Paying insurance fines and penalties is sometimes, you know, it's against public policy. So whether that can be paid or not is, you know, it is subject, but we will always consider it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And it can potentially be paid as well.
Yeah, I should have asked you what it does cover first. First-party expenses like data recovery, business interruption loss, system repair, does it cover all those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the policy really comes into its own. So when you purchase one of these policies, it's more than just, you know, words of a contract insurance contract. You have access to a 24/7 emergency hotline number. Now, I liken that to our Singapore emergency services. If your house is on fire, you call the emergency services, the fire brigade comes. You know, what if you're experiencing a really significant cyber attack? What if you cannot access your network? You call this emergency services, and with QBE, we have many partners who are incredibly experienced in this, cybersecurity specialists. What if you have to negotiate with threat actors as well? So we have these partners who, they do this day in, day out. They can negotiate with criminals. They can reduce the amount of the extortion demand which they're requesting. So this is incredibly valuable. And when we speak to our clients, we realize that they see the practical value in the cyber insurance policy. So that's something we're really proud of.
Okay, what about third-party costs like liabilities and legal fees? Let's say if your business is sued due to a breach.
Absolutely, and that is a core part of the coverage. So again, we are all handling, as our companies, a lot of consumer data, but also a lot of corporate data as well. So what are your liability risks behind that? What if there is a civil suit from the data privacy? What if you're getting sued by one of your clients because of a breach of contract? You've disclosed confidential information. You know, so you have access to law firms as well, and we will cover the costs and support you through these liability risks.
And can coverage also extend to regulatory fines, reputational damage, cyber extortion payments as well?
Yeah, the regulatory fines absolutely depend. It depends in Singapore or whichever jurisdiction you're in. But the reputational damage is a really interesting bit you brought up. So we recognize that, you know, as an SME, as a company, you know, you can take years to build your reputation, but you can lose it in a moment. So with these cyber criminals using techniques like ransomware, and they're requesting a significantly large extortion demand, Now, what is the risk to you on that? Not everyone has thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, which is what we see in our claims in terms of the requests coming through from these criminals. You don't always have that liquid cash available to pay these, but let's say you did pay it. What are the steps on from that? Do you then have enough money to pay your staff? Do you then have enough money to pay your creditors? Do you have enough working capital to get you through to the end of the month? So these are serious concerns, and let's put a reputational impact on that. What if you can't pay your staff? What if you can't pay your creditors? What is the reputational risk to your company for not being able to do that? So that's where cyber insurance comes in, is really there to help.
Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty comprehensive based on the coverage you've just outlined. But one of the main barriers to why SMEs do not buy cyber insurance is because of the cost, and that was cited as the main reason, according to the survey, why 68% of SMEs don't have it and 15% say they would not even consider it. How much do these typically cost?
Overall, they're definitely coming down significantly to what it was 5 or even more years ago. It typically can cost, if you get a really basic policy, sometimes a few $100s, but otherwise into the low thousands of dollars. But we're doing a lot more at QBE to really help our clients with that. So as we're scaling up, as we're getting more companies buying cyber insurance, this has driven us to invest in our own digital capabilities. We're now also using AI on our internal side. So we're creating a lot more internal efficiencies. We're generating economies of scale. We are reducing our internal costs, and we can pass those cost savings now onto our clients in the form of cheaper premiums and broader coverage.
What are some of the common mistakes from your experience SMEs make when evaluating their risk or choosing coverage?
I think sometimes getting too focused on cost. Now, I say that as an insurance company as well, but we are doing a lot to bring those costs down. So sometimes the difference in what you buy can be a few $100s. But when you do have a claim, the amount that you may get paid or not, it can be huge. And unfortunately as well, we see a lot of clients, they feel like they haven't bought enough once they've had a claim as well. So sometimes they might just buy a few $100,000 policy. But typically, companies should be looking at a few millions of dollars as well in terms of the coverage they're buying. So not buying enough is sometimes a real concern.
So for those with limited budgets, which seems like the majority, where should they prioritize first? Stronger cyber defenses, insurance coverage, maybe both?
I think both. So cyber insurance now, I mentioned earlier, it's more than just an insurance contract. It is a full service product. So the money you would have been spending on your IT security provider to pay a retainer, for example, you're getting access to that via the policy anyway. There's also a huge number of value-added services that we offer with our internal risk management team. So we can help you with your cybersecurity risk. We can help improve your network. We can give you access to various vendors at significant discounts as well. I don't want insurance to be seen as this is a cost to me. Sometimes it can supplement all of your costs and you can save money in other places.
Just curious to know, ultimately, will cyber insurance actually change the mindset of SMEs in that it will force their hand in ensuring systems are more robust? Or is there a risk of complacency knowing that they are insured from external threats?
I don't think there'll ever be a complacency. I think our clients are well-versed enough to really recognize that. But cyber insurance, it is supplementing all of this. It is there for when you absolutely need us most. What if you had to pay a significant extortion amount? What if your network was down for a week, 2 weeks, or a longer period of time? And sometimes clients are faced with these horrible decisions of, I have to pay this amount of money. Otherwise, the alternative, I've got to try and rebuild my entire corporate network from scratch. So this is where cyber insurance comes into play. So it shouldn't be seen as, this is just a cost. It is really there to help you.
So which industries or sectors do you work with currently?
I think the beauty of it is it's everyone. Anyone who has access to the internet, anyone who has a computer, anyone who has a phone. Cyber risk is with all of us, even on our own personal side as well, these scams. So we are dealing with all sorts of SMEs across Singapore.
Fair enough. Are there specific industries or types of SMEs that are more vulnerable to cyber attacks, and why would that be so?
It is an interesting question. It really does depend. I think certain industries are more exposed to certain things. So, for example, if you are a manufacturing industry, you are very high risk of your business interruption. If your entire factory floor shuts down, what are you going to do? How much money are you going to lose if you can't produce your goods for 2 days, 3 days, a week, or even longer? But then we take a step the other way. So we look more into the financial services sector. Often you're dealing with potentially very high net worth individuals, a lot of financial institutions. So you're regulated in a different sense. So then your risks move more into the liability side. So there's no one size fits all, but the policy is broad enough that it can cater to anyone.
Yeah, can you share a real world example of an SME suffering a breach and how having cyber insurance changed the way they responded and recovered?
Absolutely. And this is very, very common. So at the times where the SMEs, they've outsourced their entire IT network to a third party, you think you're safe. Turns out that third party wasn't looking after your network quite as well as you perhaps thought you were. They were then staring down the decision of, we have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in this extortion demand, or otherwise we've got to start again. The policy was able to reimburse them for that cost of paying the demand. It was able to help them get back online. We were also able to help them pursue a liability claim against the third party for not handling their network properly.
What are some early warning signs SMEs should look out for that their systems or staff may already have been compromised, do you think?
Well, unfortunately, getting compromise is happening a lot more frequently. So there are definitely some minimum controls in place. Like if you haven't multi-factor authentication, this is the OTP that comes through anytime you're accessing any of your banks and approving a transaction. So you've got to have some of these minimum baseline controls. But otherwise, a lot of the times, and this is what's really scary about it, you won't even know that they're in there. Attackers, they may have found they had access to your network, and then suddenly when the time is right, they will pick their moment and they will deploy the ransomware. And this can happen in an instant. And unfortunately, it tends to happen over a weekend at 3 a.m. when people are less expecting it.
So in a nutshell, Sam, where does cyber insurance fit into the broader toolkit of risk management alongside the likes of staff training, system updates, phishing awareness, things of that nature?
It's absolutely just got to be hand in hand. Cyber risk at the heart of it is a business risk. What if you can't pay your staff? What if you can't pay your creditors? What if you can't access your network? These are really serious concerns we hear from our clients, and it's got to be there to supplement all these other good things like phishing awareness training, good cybersecurity controls, good hygiene. So that's where cyber insurance comes to play.
And finally, looking ahead, how do you expect cyber insurance products to evolve to keep up with the increasing digitalization of small businesses?
Absolutely. So the policy is always adapting. We're always looking for avenues of new coverage that are relevant to our clients. But I think in the short term, we need to make it, I liken it to the 2 A's. We have access and affordability. We've got to make it more accessible. And we are doing that. We're creating shorter application forms, in some cases, no application forms. So your friction barrier to entry to obtaining cyber coverage has become far easier than ever before.
All right. We've been deconstructing the risks and realities of cyber insurance for SMEs in Singapore with Sam Russell-Vick, lead cyber underwriter at QBE Asia. Sam, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.